who I was, and he went, "That guy took my line." Blew his mind is what I was about to say. So, but with that, I want you to really tune into another great message that is here for you guys on really making your life super good. Lauren.
I hope you don't mind if I take my jacket off. We're in a little more of an informal crowd now, and based on the number of people. We're going to get right down and dirty, if you will. Is that all right?
Yeah.
Get dirty.
Yeah.
Good. I could see his face turning red. In fact, the little blood vessels were starting to pop in the corners of his eyes. More than that, there were tears streaming down both sides of his face as he struggled and he fought and he pulled and he kicked. And then the little quiver in his voice and you could feel it start to cry. And I don't mean cry like a baby. He was crying. And it was all I could do as father to stand back and watch. And then I had to spring into action, and I said, "Jesse, buddy, come on, man. You know how to get out of there now. You've been trained. That's why you have the green belt. What do you got to do first?" I can get air. I can do that. I'm holding on. I said, "What do you do next?" Turn into it. I said, "Great. Now what do you do?" And my 10-year-old son grabbed this grown man by his pant sleeve and lifted it up over his head, and the man went flat on his back on the floor. And in victory, with tears streaming down his face, he went, "That's what I'm supposed to do." And I said, "That's right. Now, why in the world would I tell you that story when you're 57? Why do you care?" Let me ask this question. If I could tell you that there is definitively a difference and a direct relationship between the outcome of our last election and the success of your life, your business, and your relationships in 2013, would you want to know what that one connection is? And if I can tell you that not only can I tell you what that word is, I can tell you how to change it. Would you want to know how to change it? If I can tell you what the word is, how to change it, and that by changing it, you can change the outcome of your business, your life, and your relationships in 2013, and, without a shadow of a doubt in my mind, the outcome of the next election. Raise your hand if you decided to know that word.
However, you are next to the whole.
There is a line of demarcation that's been drawn in the sand. A lot of people have overlooked. They don't understand that on one side of that line is a group of people that we used to call the greatest generation. They have a mindset, if you will, that if I'm going to have it, I better get out there and earn it. If I'm going to have it, I've got to work for it because no one's going to give it to me. And you know what? I don't even really want it if you're just going to hand it to me. I want to go get it. I want to be able to say, "That's mine. I've earned it." Raise your hand if you're on that side of that line. On the other side of that line is a group of people who said, "I showed up on the soccer field today. Where's my trophy?" You know them, don't you?
Yeah.
Now, see, here's the sad part. Somewhere when that line was drawn, it got all cloudy. Because we created a process whereby it's really easy to sit on a couch, sitting on your trophy, doing nothing, and make more money than the guy who's on the other side with his tail on. Am I wrong? See, there's a distinct difference with the people that are in this room. How many of you have a job working for another company? Only a couple. How many of you depend mostly on your income based on your effort? If that's the truth, then there's something different about you. See, when my son had that choker around his neck, now, just for what it's worth, he's now almost as tall as Tim and built about the same way. His hands are almost twice the size of mine, and he's not even 15 yet. And if he gets you in a rear naked choke, tap, or sleep, you will not, I don't care how big you are, 300 plus football player will go to the ground before he lets you go. It's like being attacked by a granddaddy long leg. You just can't get him. He's fiery. You just can't get rid of him. But when he was 10, and he got in that choke, and he wasn't prepared, he panicked. Raise your hand if you've ever been desperate. See, there's a difference between those of us in this room and the desperate. What's the difference? Planning. Say again. Decision. What else? Never take no for an answer. Action.
Community.
Sorry?
Community.
Community. What's one word you can put all that together in? Yeah, I see them on opposite sides of the line. On the one side, you have desperation. No, I'm not a speller. I did not go to LSU. And on the other side, I'm making words up. It's okay. On the other side, I think it's this. How many of you would agree with me? I agree with you. Now, see, I think desperation panics, freaks out, and loses control and acts rationally. I think determination says, I'm going back to my training, I'm going back to my planning, I'm going back to what I know to do, and I'm going to apply it until it works. Desperation says, it's fourth and goal, and I've got to bust through there. And then we watch Tony Romo fumble the snap, run to the goal line, and fall on the 2. Determination says, I'm Jason Witten with my helmet off, and I'll take another 25 yards, and then I'll step out, baby, because I know I need to stop the clock before we kick that field goal, because I'm not crazy enough to hit that 1 yard line on a goal line stand. You understand the difference? One plans and acts, one's act. I believe there's one word that covers both of those. It's a big A word. And say it. Attitude. That's my word right there. I think if we're going to take our country back, we're going to have to get an attitude. If we're going to, as coaches, change lives around us, we've got to get an attitude. We've got to stop saying, give me my trophy, I showed up. Now, let me tell you what really breaks my heart about that more than anything else. How many of you have heard or said in your coaching, or in just relationships, the saddest place on earth is the graveyard, and why is that? Broken dreams? Because that's where they're buried, right? Because all the dreams are buried there. Let me ask you a question. How many of those dreams are buried on this side of the line, on the couch, with the cheese puffs, and the Coca-Cola, and the Xbox? Because let me tell you something, the human potential that God placed inside those creatures was not to sit on the couch and play Xbox because they get more money sitting there doing nothing. He put it there to give back because it's not about you. You agree with that? See, we have to get an attitude if we're going to coach them out of that place. We have to get an attitude about what they're capable of. We've got to get an attitude about what we're capable of. We have to motivate ourselves to motivate our clients. But in the end, it's about the attitude. So let me tell you where mine started. I was about 5 years old, and it was about 4 o'clock in the morning. And we had driven from Ames, Iowa to Brownwood, Texas. How many of you know where Brownwood, Texas is? Who knows where Ames, Iowa is? That's a long way. It was Christmas Day. We finished opening presents, but my stepdad had to be back at work the next morning. So we drove all the way back to Ames, Iowa in the middle of the night. We get out of the car, and I had this box in my hand. A big box. And my 4-year-old self has this box, and as I pick it up, I look at this box and there's the little picnic patterned plates and bowls and cups and a little basket and a little blanket. And I look at this box and I have this vision in my head of my family. Stepdad, mom, sisters gathered under the tree, having a family picnic together. And as I'm carrying this box to the door, I trip over the door jamb and I fall flat on the floor and I break everything in the box. Everything in the box. And my vision of our family was shattered with that box. Now I'm laying there on top of this box. And I'm crying. Now, I'm not crying because I'm hurt. I'm not even sure that I understand enough to cry because the vision was shattered. I'm just crying because I know it's the only present my mother got for Christmas from her mother that year. And I just destroyed it. And my stepdad walked over, takes me by my wrist, looks me right in the eye and said, "What are you crying for? I'll give you something to cry for. Go downstairs and wait for me." When the bell broke, the leather gateway and the buckle flew across the room. I had bruises from my hairline to the back of my ankles. See, when I fell on that box, it crashed my vision. It broke my heart. But when he took me downstairs, he broke me through. Fast forward a couple of years, I'm in high school. And I entered the science fair project. How many of you did the science fair project in school? I had the science fair project. I created what I call the car of the future. And I won first place. First place. First place in physics and first place overall with my car of the future. And so I'm standing there and everyone's around me and I'm gloating over my trophies and my ribbons. And the radio show guy comes up and holds the microphone in my face and he goes, "So, you're pretty proud of this project?" "Yes, I am." "And so tell me what you'll do if this actually works." That's exactly what I said. And then I said, "I'm going to go build these." And he looks at me and he goes, "You know, if that works, you'll prove all the laws of thermodynamics incorrect. And in fact, you'll completely dismiss the theory of perpetual motion." I remember words. And he walked out the door. And I picked up my project and I followed him out the door. And he went left to the parking lot and I went right to the dumpster and that's the box. It was empty. A couple of years later, I got stuck on this speech team when I hurt my back and couldn't play football my senior year in high school. It was either home ec, where I'd be making cupcakes, or it was speech, and I wasn't trading shoulder pads for an apron. So I went on a speech team. And I get sent off to this contest where I'm competing in front of the blue-haired ladies. I'm telling them about ecology. Do we have to save the earth? And these old blue-haired ladies are snoozing. Let me tell you something. It was an 8-minute oratory, memorized speech, word for word. In fact, I got dinged if I forgot a word that was in the speech. Horrible. I fell asleep at that. It was that bad. But I finished my speech at the UIL competition, and I'm out in the hallway. I'm bored. I'm running up down the hallway playing. I can go see for the freshmen. And my speech teacher, who's all about 4 foot nothing, comes to me. She grabs me by my ear. She drags me in this room. You've ever been bugged by your ear? You feel like you want to walk on your ear. I wish I was like that. She throws me in this room, and she turns to the teacher in the room, whispers something in her ear. And on the way out, she gives me a pat on the back and a smile to mouth. Now, the pat on the back said, "You can do this." The smile with the nod said, and the teacher tears the corner off a piece of paper, just a tiny little piece. She writes one word on it. She hands it to me and she said, "Your speech will be 3 minutes. You got 1 minute to prepare. Go." That was about 30 minutes. And then I finished the speech. At the end of the day, we're on the bus. And the teacher calls me to the front. She said, "I have a surprise for everyone." And I'm like, "Yay, I got busted playing hide and seek with a freshman. I can't even imagine what this surprise is going to be. You're walking home." So I walk to the front of the bus and I stand there. She says, "For the first time ever in the history of our school, we have a first place UIL win. It's impromptu speaking. You want to know?" I said, "What was impromptu speaking? Can I do that today?" And I realized I had a gift. And I was proud of that gift. So my senior year comes and I have offers from the University of North Texas for physics and music and speech. I also have a rule. And I'm and she says, "University of North Texas is way too far from what I have." And I walked out the door with my fellowship and I turned the thing to my phone. Turned my phone on and I went to 11 months into my electronics engineering degree, which math is something I'm good at and I hate. 11 months in, I called her and say, hey, I'm taking my final exam today, I'll be home. You want to like go have lunch and hang out at me today? And she said, what do you think, Steph? She says, who's this? Who's this? I went, what? Who's this? 2 years and 11 months and you don't know the sound of my voice? It broke my heart, but I failed my test, but it broke my will when she walked out. So I joined the Air Force, what anybody else would do, and I spent 5 years in the Air Force. I got out of the Air Force, I went to the education counselor with a stack of my writing, which probably looked about like this. And I had this big stack of paper in my hand, and I said, I want to be the next James Gottlieb. How do I do that? What? I've got all this money for the GI Bill, how do I do that? And she said, who's James Gottlieb? I said, okay. Well, he writes and he speaks and he helps people change their families. I'm 19, 20 years old. She says, well, you write? Yeah, a little bit. And so I just randomly pulled a page out. I handed it to her. She leaves. She thought about 10 minutes. It seemed like forever. She comes back with no makeup. She looks me in the eye and she goes, who did that? And I wrote it. She goes, oh, where did you get? I mean, I understand you typed it up. Today's the typewriter. So I understand you typed it up. I mean, where did you get the words? So I wrote it. They came from my heart. She said. And I don't believe that. So I'm telling you, it was me. It's all original. It's all me. She said, see, that's where I have a problem. And so just help me understand. Do I need to go to school for English? Do I need to learn to write better? She said, no. Literature degree is not going to do anything. I said, okay. Do I need to go to school and get a degree in psychology or like communication or like speech or something? And she said, no, I think you're very well articulate now. And then what do I need to go to school for so that people read this stuff? And she looked at me and she said, look, son, you're just too young. There's no way anybody is going to believe that a 20-year-old single man wrote this piece. Now, if I just found this laying somewhere and I read it, I would think it came from a woman who's had a very troubled past. Or if it came from a man, it was like a psychiatrist or a psychologist or maybe a pastor who's been counseling people for years. There's no way a 20-year-old man understands this. I went, what do you mean? She said, look, you're not going to succeed in this business unless you just do a little bit. I walked out the door with my GI Bill money. I put it right through my scholarship, right through my science, right through my home, and for the next 2 years. See, I knew I had a gift for communicating with people, and I could connect with people. And I abandoned what I was called to do. There's no one else to support that money. And then I got an attitude. I got an attitude a couple of years ago when I was called to the Dale Carnegie office as a coach to come back and help and volunteer. And when I showed up, there was nobody there. I put my last hope of it. You ever take gas pump water? You know what I mean by gas pump water? Yeah. I put my debit card in the machine. I'm like, and it gave me some gas. I filled my tank. It was like $100. I called my wife. I said, I just overdraw to the account. And now, back up just a little bit from that. I've been DJing since I got laid off in 2008. It's now August of 2010. And we are flat broke. I was broken. We were looking off of this, somebody else was saying this. It's broke. So when I stuck that card in that gas card, I knew I wasn't just not going to put the money back in there. I was taking it away from the next month's groceries, the next month's cycle. But see, my ego said, I got to stand in front of people because this is what I do well. And when I showed up at the Dale Carnegie office, there was nobody there. And so I looked. I packed up my stuff and I started driving back and I called my wife and I said, look, I'm all dressed up. No place to go. I don't want to see me like this. And I was a wreck. Honestly, it was must have hit me right then. I was like, that. I was ready to give up. I hit the Barnes and Noble and I got my little book, Effective Public Speaking by Dale Carnegie. And I sat there for 2.5 hours reading that book. And for 2.5 hours, I read 9 pages. Raise your hand if you've ever been that distracted by emotions in life. You got those thoughts going on in your head and they'll affect your body physically, biochemically. Your heart rate goes up, your stomach gets all nauseous, you can't think straight. I sat there like that for 2.5 hours. And I got up, went to the bathroom, I washed my face, I washed away the tears. took a deep breath, and I walked back out, and I'm still feeling this sense of just dread of my own mind. As I step out, and then I look up and I go, if there's something I'm supposed to be hearing, you're going to have to speak up because I'm not getting it. And I look up, and I see a little sign about this big, and it says, don't know. Imagine that. So I said, all right, you're going to play like that? It better be in this book. And I grabbed the first book my hand landed on. And I spun it around without looking at the cover, and I said, and it better be on this page. And I looked down at the page, and it said, we had a 5-year party. Party for 5 years. That's like something Tim would do. I started looking through the pages, and it says, we had a party where everyone came as if they'd already reached their goals 5 years ago. They were looking as if, acting as if, dreaming as if, speaking as if all their dreams had already come true. So they had one guy who was walking around giving out lottery cards because he was a millionaire now. He could make other people rich. They had another guy carrying around somebody else's book with his own cover wrapped around the outside of it going, I wrote a book. In fact, not only did I wrote a book, I sold 100 million copies of my book. Wow, impressive. Now we get to the end of the chapter. And that's when I was stunned. At the end of that chapter, he said that everyone was at that party. To a T. Well, okay, not exactly to a T, but so close you wouldn't want to put one. The guy who said I'm going to sell 100 million books only sold 88 of them. Is that okay? Would you be okay with 88 million books? Okay, so I looked at this book and I went, this guy knows something I don't know, and I want to know that. Now, I've already overdrawn my account. So I used that gas money and I drove back and forth to Barnes & Noble for 2 weeks. I read the entire book before I bought it. Eventually, a friend bought that book. But in that book, I made some discoveries about myself. I made some discoveries about other things in life that I had simply never been taught. I call them life lessons that we all have to learn eventually, that many of us were not taught in school. And then I get that call on Monday, and it's the Dale Carnegie office again. What nerve, right? They're like, we really want you to come and coach. And I'm like, I'm feeling like George Bush now. Fool me twice, and you're creating a fool. Wait, fool me once, and oh wait, you know what I'm talking about. You're trying to fool me again. So I decide I'm going to do it, and I drive all the way to Dale Carnegie office. And I walk in the room, and there's 35 people in there, and I'm like, all right, I feel much better now. Taking a deep breath, I've got some new vision, I've got some ideas on what I want to do 5 years from now, almost. And so I stand in front of this crowd, and the first introduction, the coach, the teacher, the actual certified trainer for Dale Carnegie walks up to me and he says, never will work with a coach before. I don't even know what it is that you do here. Yay. He said, but the first thing we're going to do is a vision statement. And I find that people do it better if they hear one first. Would you be willing to do that? I'm sure, I'm all over it. Those are the words coming out of my mouth. What's going on in my head? Vision, are you kidding? I gave you clues. And he walks off, and I go to the desk, and I grab my Dale Carnegie down, and I'm thumbing through it as fast as I can, trying to find the answer. How do you make a vision statement? I got nothing. Nothing. And I hear him finish his introduction, and he says, now, to welcome to the front of the room, our coach, Laura Norris, is going to come tell us what it means to establish a vision for your life. And I went, yes. Stood up out of my desk and I walked to the front of the room with nothing in my mind. There's nothing in my mind. And I spin around on my heels and I went. I see myself standing on the stage at the American Airlines Center with 5,000 people in the crowd. And the energy is crazy. I can feel the music pumping. I can feel people's hearts and souls connecting with me because I know they came here to hear me tell them how to live a more excellent life. And everyone in the room just burst into applause. And I ran to the back of the room to write it down as fast as I could because I had never heard those words before. I had no idea that that's what I really wasn't able to do. But when it came out of my mouth, it resonated in my heart. Raise your hand if you heard that. You say something and you're like, I didn't even know that, but now I know that. See, it's like what Brian told us earlier. I'd heard it. I knew it. I feel it. When I spoke it that day, I felt it. And that day, I made a direct declaration. And I got an attitude. And I said, you know what? Living More Excellent Life sounds like a great name for a book. So I wrote one. I started it that August. And by February of 2011, I had written 5 chapters. a book. 60 pages. And then a guy came to me and said, hey, I hear you're working on a book. Let's meet on April such and such, and let's talk about it. And in 2 weeks, I finished it. I published in July of 2011. Well, one of the declarations that I made that day was I am going to win a Toastmaster contest. Okay, I was not a Toastmaster at the time. In fact, I didn't even know if Toastmasters had contests. But by golly, I'm going to get in one of them and I'm going to win it. So I signed up for Toastmasters and I joined in August, and by October, before Thanksgiving, I had my compass meeting. Which, from what I understand, less than 50% of all Toastmasters ever finish their compass meeting, which is sad. By the February of the next year, I had entered this contest known as the International Speech Contest, and I went, what is that? But I won. I won in my little chapter of 8 people. Yay! And then I won at the area with like 40 people. Yay! And then I won at the division with like 140 people. Yay! Then I won at the district with 400 people. Whoa, wait a minute, what's next? And the next move put me on the stage in Las Vegas with 1,500 people. And I was in the final round out of 35,000 contestants. There were 80 people. That was a wild ride. On that journey there, my wife and I had this very solemn discussion. Karen, if I'm going to do something new with my life, I have to decide what it is that I'm going to invest in to make me a better me. Because I got a lot of stuff in my head, but I don't have anything that people look at and go, that's good stuff. So I know this guy, Steve Siebold, that you can buy his program and then teach his stuff. And of course, there's the Zig Ziglar stuff, there's lots of that, but I don't know if you can buy that and teach that stuff. And then Jack Canfield has his stuff. You can buy his stuff and teach his stuff. But my problem with all of these were that they didn't have the grounding. The ones that were available didn't have the grounding in faith that my life depends on. They didn't have that same word. And so I said to her, look, we got our tax return back, and the amount that it's going to cost us to replace our heat and AC, the same amount as it's on Maxwell for me. And so that 24-hour drive from Dallas to Las Vegas to discuss the idea. And as a family, we made the sacrifice together. We went for 11 months in Dallas, Texas, with a heat or AC in our home to pay for the tuition to the John Maxwell program. I want you to think for a moment about something that Brian told you earlier. If you don't develop the person first, professional sales is going to happen. If you as a coach are not investing in you being a better you, that's the way your time and your money. That's just a sad reality. Here's a sadder reality we have. Those people that are punched into their couches with their Xbox and their cheese puffs and their Diet Coke, the average coach that's helping them hasn't invested any more than that. Where do you think their dreams are their time? Somewhere between the end of the couch and the beginning of the football. That's where their dreams are. Someone has got to help them find the inspiration. And so when I got an attitude, the first thing that I got was a vision. I started looking up vision. I want to show you this acronym real quick. I'll come back to that. Way back there. Here we go. So, like any good person, how many of you research the dictionary? And I don't mean just like look up a word that you need one, but like research the dictionary. How many of you do that? Yeah, like look up a word that it comes from and how it. Who else reads the encyclopedia except me? You're not freak like that. When I decided that I had to have a vision for my life, like I got on the stage that day, I said, well, I've got to be able to teach that to people. How do I teach them to get a vision? Well, what does a vision look like? And so I started working on this acronym, and I pulled out my dictionary, my 1949 Noah Webster. It's got to be the original, right? Is it? Yeah, it's the first one wrote.
Yeah.
So I started working on my acronym. And I literally sat down, and it's in one of my journals. I sat down with the dictionary, with the acronym vision, and I looked at every word that started with it, looking for one that fit my purpose and resonated with my heart. And I found vivid, and I said, you know, there's not really a point having a vision for your life, if you can't define it in a way that you see it, and you can charge for it. How many of you ever heard that old song about Stadium of Birmingham? Country song. Yep. You know all the words to it? He says, paint me in Birmingham. Listen close. Little house on the edge of town. Porch,